Welcome to Shadowline News, your source for breaking political developments across Africa and beyond. Controversial statements from Kenya's highest officials have sparked intense national debate about police use of force against protesters. President William Ruto has told police officers to shoot in the leg anyone caught looting businesses and vandalizing property during protests. Speaking at a police housing project commissioning ceremony in Nairobi's Kilimani area, the president made the directive that has sent shockwaves through civil society organizations. Anyone who burns down someone else's business and property, let them be shot in the leg and go to the hospital as they head to court. Yes, let them not kill, but shoot and break the legs. Destroying people's property is not right, he said. The president's words come amid escalating tensions between security forces and protesters. If you're finding our analysis valuable, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell. We're bringing you the most critical political developments as they unfold across the continent. Ruto warned unnamed political leaders he accused of inciting the youth into violence, saying, "It is leaders financing youth to carry out those acts, and we are coming after you." The president's stern warning signals a potential crackdown on opposition figures. The president's directive follows equally controversial statements from Interior Cabinet Secretary Kilimani Murkomen. The CS told the police, "Anyone who gets near a police station, shoot them. Why should someone who wants to steal firearms be spared? Firearms are not donuts." However, legal experts have challenged these interpretations. Legal expert Joshua Nyamori has come forward to clarify the situation, urging the public to carefully consider the context of Murkomen's statements and the legal framework governing police actions. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kilimani Murkomen has denied claims that he issued a shoot-to-kill order to police officers during recent remarks made in the aftermath of the deadly protests on June 25th. The human rights community has expressed grave concerns about these statements. The law is clear. Lethal force is only permissible as a last resort, and only when there is an imminent threat to life, not in response to protests or property destruction. Amnesty International Kenya has warned that such rhetoric could escalate violence. From the most recent demos on Monday, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights said it recorded 31 deaths and 107 injuries. These statistics highlight the deadly consequences of ongoing confrontations between protesters and security forces. The critical question now is what happens when police who are already killing receive explicit authority to shoot. At least 80 people have died in protests since June 2024, and at least 63 people were killed in police fire, many taken out in cold blood, according to human rights organizations. The Independent Medical Legal Unit found that gunshot wounds and blunt force trauma were the primary causes of death. These new directives from the highest levels of government could legitimize what was already happening on the ground. Police officers who previously faced potential consequences for excessive force may now interpret these statements as protection from accountability. The psychological effect on law enforcement cannot be understated when their superiors publicly authorize shooting protesters. International observers are particularly concerned about the escalation potential. An Associated Press photographer captured the shooting of a civilian by a Kenyan police officer in the head at close range during recent protests. Such incidents were occurring without explicit authorization. The implications of formal shooting orders are deeply troubling. The timing of these statements adds another layer of concern. Combating police violence had been a major plank of President William Ruto's 2022 campaign for office. But since taking power, he has lapsed into the habits of his predecessors. This represents a complete reversal of his campaign promises. Legal experts warn that these directives could create a culture of impunity within security forces. When both the Interior Cabinet Secretary and the President issue shooting orders, it sends a clear signal down the chain of command that lethal force is not only acceptable but expected. This normalization of violence against civilians represents a dangerous precedent for democratic governance. Stay connected with Shadowline News for continued coverage of this developing story. Subscribe now to ensure you never miss critical updates on Kenya's political crisis. The protests have their roots in public discontent over economic policies and governance issues. Protests across Kenya have increased in recent months over growing public discontent against Ruto's regime over the rising cost of living and a spate of crackdowns on government critics and street protests, many of which have resulted in deaths, injuries, and abductions. The June 25th protests left over 16 people killed, most by police, per the rights group Amnesty International Kenya. The anniversary protests commemorated earlier demonstrations against the controversial finance bill that sparked nationwide unrest. In addition to businesses, youthful groups also attacked at least 9 police stations, torching at least 5, as well as courts and county government offices and vehicles. These incidents have intensified the government's security response. The international community is closely monitoring Kenya's handling of civil unrest. Questions remain about the proportionality of force and adherence to international human rights standards governing law enforcement during demonstrations. This has been your comprehensive update on Kenya's political crisis from Shadowline News. The combination of existing police, brutality, and new shooting orders from government officials creates an unprecedented threat to civilian safety during protests. We remain committed to delivering accurate, timely reporting on the stories that matter most to our continental audience.